Well, the diversity visa lottery is an exciting opportunity to come to America. There's some challenges as well, especially when it comes to the application. So, Lisa, can you please tell us what are the biggest mistakes that people can face when filling out and applying for the DV lottery?
I'm so glad you're asking me this question because everybody wants the DV to win the DV lottery, but they don't realize that the biggest mistakes they can make are before they've even won the lottery, and that is when they're applying for the lottery. There are unfortunately a lot of unscrupulous scammers out there that make all kinds of false promises to give false hope to people about
Mm.
how they can help somebody win the DV lottery. It's really important to know that it is 100% free to play the DV lottery. It's just a matter of filling out your application form correctly, and you should never feel like you have to pay to enter the lottery. If somebody is asking you to pay to enter the lottery, then that is not the official way for entering. The second biggest mistake is that people aren't accurate on their applications. Make sure you're choosing the correct country of chargeability and make sure that you're listing all of your children. These are the two most common reasons I see people get refused at the visa interview, which can be extremely disappointing for somebody who's won the lottery and believes that they're well on their way to the United States.
Well, that's super helpful. And friends, if you want to learn more about the DV lottery visa interview, tips, and red flags, stay tuned. Hey, friends, welcome to Chine Coaching. I'm Rob. At Chine Coaching, we're all about helping you to thrive and succeed in your cross-cultural journey. I've had the wonderful opportunity to live abroad, travel around the world, and I know that many of you guys aspire to go abroad, and the DV lottery is a great opportunity to come to America. We've learned that there's challenges with the applications, and now we're going to talk more about the visa interview. We've got an amazing guest to help us understand that better. So, Lisa, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. I am a consultant with Argo Visa. What we do is help clients who are about to face a visa interview. Doesn't matter if it's their first visa interview or if they've applied many times before and perhaps have some refusals or complicating factors. We're there to help them be prepared for their visa interview to put their best foot forward. I'm a former visa officer, also known as a consular officer. I was with the State Department for 13 years. During that time, I got to serve in some beautiful places like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Iraq, and France.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to learn from your experience and especially about this DV lottery category. So let's kind of pivot more towards the visa interview. And what is the visa officer looking for in a DV lottery candidate when they come to the counter for that visa interview?
Yeah, I mean, the DV lottery is really hard to come by, right? There are annually only 55,000 winners around the entire world. And you can only qualify for the DV lottery if you're from certain countries that we would like to see more immigration from, or countries that we don't already have a lot of immigrants from, are typically the countries that qualify to play the diversity lottery program. It's one of my favorite categories of visa, though controversial in some circles. Simply because it does offer the American dream to people who meet some very basic requirements. And of course, as the name suggests, improve our diversity in the United States. So to win the diversity lottery visa, you have to fill out an application. The program is open annually. You can only apply once. This is really important. If you apply more than once and you get to the visa interview, you will be refused if it's known that you've applied more than once. It's automatically disqualifying to apply more than once. If you and your spouse both qualify, you can both play the lottery, as one time as the primary applicant. If you're lucky enough to win the lottery, then when you come to your visa interview, you just have to prove some basic qualifications. That you are the nationality to the chargeable country, meaning a country that qualified to play the lottery in the first place. The second is that you have the equivalent of an American high school education, or within the last 5 years have worked for 2 years in an occupation that requires 2 years of experience. And a little tip here, we use ONET Online to determine which occupations require 2 years of experience to work. So that's how we determine if your work experience qualifies for the diversity visa or not. Besides that, we also look to make sure that you can support yourself in the US, that you're not somebody who's going to likely become what we call a public charge, meaning that you do kind of have the kind of skills or experience that will allow you to be employable in the US and support yourself. And lastly, just to make sure that everything on the visa application is correct, because it is really common for people to make mistakes on the question of, who are all of your children. That's something that the officer might ask about too. And the important thing to know here is when you're making your application for the lottery, you have to list all of your unmarried children under the age of 21. That includes stepchildren. That includes adopted children. That includes any children, even if they are not traveling with you. So don't think like, oh, I have a 21-year-old child, but they're not traveling with me, so I don't need to list them on the application. No, you have to list them as well.
So Lisa mentioned the online to see if jobs qualified. So yeah, we'll put links and any other resources available about the DV lottery in the video description. Now, next, another big category that people want to understand, Lisa, is what are the common questions that people are going to face with that visa interview from the visa officer? What are the ones that they can kind of expect and hopefully start preparing for?
Yeah, so the common questions go to the requirements of the visa. The first and foremost are going to be questions about your education and work experience. So now is not the time to be humble. You should go in ready to, hopefully be able to demonstrate above and beyond the high school equivalent education. If your country's system is different from the US system, you'll want to bring documentation that demonstrates, that it's equivalent to a US high school education. If you want to demonstrate your qualifications through work, then you'll want to bring documentations just in case that demonstrate kind of the level of your job so the officer can easily discern, oh yeah, this is a job that would take 2 years of experience in order to accomplish. The other thing that they'll ask about is your family, right? They want to make sure that the spouse you're bringing is really your spouse, that the children you're bringing are really your children, because not only does the winner get the DV visa, but so does their immediate family. Lastly, they will ask you questions about, well, what's your plan when you get to the US? What are you going to do there? And they want to hear something fairly solid about, how you're going to set yourself up, how are you going to be able to afford life. If you have friends or relatives in the US that are going to help you get on your feet, that you can stay with in the beginning, or might be able to help you find a job, things like this, it's good to explain that to the officer. So the officer has this, kind of warm, fuzzy feeling like, oh yeah, this person's going to be all right in the US on their own. If you're, filling out your application correctly, you're meeting the minimum requirements in terms of job and education, and your family members are really your family members, there's a really good chance that you'll be approved your visa.
Fantastic. Yeah, those are really helpful to know, and people can start preparing, thinking how they want to communicate that with their story to make sense to the visa officer. I've been learning a lot. Friends, if you're learning a lot as well and finding this video helpful, hit that like button to say thanks and cheers to Lisa and sharing this information. And our chai question for you is, what other questions do you have about the DV lottery? I know this is a new category for me, and maybe you're still exploring this, seeing if you qualify or how to prepare for that visa interview. So yeah, tell us in the comments, what other questions do you guys have about the DV lottery? We want to maybe can give you more resources or make another video later on about your guys' questions, because we want to help you understand and succeed in these goals here. So let us know in the comments, what do you want to learn more about the DV lottery? So Lisa, as you mentioned, the DV lottery is very unique. It's a special visa, and it also has some unique challenges, not only in trying to get it, but potentially, in the qualifications, in awarding it, but then also maybe in future visa opportunities. So what are some of the challenges that people need to be aware of in this process with the DV lottery?
Yeah, I mean, the DV lottery, if you win it and qualify for it, allows you to move to the US, obtain a green card and basically live and work legally in the US and turn that into citizenship eventually. So it is an immigrant visa.
Hmm.
And by applying for it, you are saying, yes, I intend to immigrate to the US with it. So the challenge comes in is if you or your family members, has ever listed you on a DV lottery application and has been selected, the officer is going to know, that you went in for your a DV visa interview. And, if you didn't end up immigrating for some reason, or if you refuse the visa, then in the future, when you go to apply for a non-immigrant visa, say like a tourist visa or a student visa, officers likely going to have questions about your immigrant intent. Okay, so we know for a fact at one point in time, you were interested in immigrating to the US because you applied for the diversity lottery visa. Can you explain at this point why that wouldn't be the case? Now, unfortunately, that's what they're wondering, but that isn't necessarily how they're going to ask the question. But you need to be answering that question in your interview, even if not directly asked. A lot of clients ask us if simply having played the lottery is going to negatively impact their future applications, and it doesn't. I mean, just playing the lottery isn't enough to raise those red flags for a consular officer, but in either situation, what you'll want to do is clarify how that may have been true at one point, the desire to work and live in the US, but how those plans or how your intent has changed for the purposes of, the visa that you're applying for today.
And one challenge you've mentioned too is people getting selected, but there not being enough spots. Could you explain that for people who are watching?
Yeah, I do want to caution people, even those who have won the diversity lottery and who meet all the requirements, that it's not necessarily a sure thing that you get the diversity visa at the end of the day. So you do have to be careful, don't start selling your property and making big plans to go to the US until you have that visa in hand. Because what the US government does is they select more lottery winners than they have visas for. And the reason for this is just in case there are a number of people who don't show up for their visa interview or who are refused for their visa interview, we have more winners in line that we can invite to come in for an interview. But not everybody who wins the lottery is guaranteed a visa interview, and you're certainly not guaranteed the visa. So please don't make any travel plans or major life decisions until you have that visa in hand.
Those are some great tips. And it sounds like if you do get the DV lottery, it's like the jackpot. It's what I think everyone is trying to aspire for if they do want to come to America, to get the work visa, the green card, the citizenship. That's a great goal for many people. But it's not always easy. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of unknowns that can hurt people in their potential future journey, especially with immigration. So, Lissa, tell us how Argo Visa can help people in understanding the DV lottery and other visa interview challenges.
You're absolutely right. I mean, winning the diversity lottery is not an opportunity that is likely to ever happen more than once. And so you want to be absolutely sure that you have crossed all your T's, dotted all your I's before your visa interview. So at Argo Visa, we can help people who've won the diversity lottery, who are preparing for their interview, ensure that they're meeting all the requirements that we've talked about and doing it in a confident, assertive manner so that the officer doesn't second guess anything, hopefully, and will issue that visa based on, your explanation of your background, your family, and your plans in the US.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Argo Visa. They're one of our Chai and Coaching approved partners, and they have a really neat free resource for you guys called their Visa Checkup Tool, where you can kind of gauge your preparedness for a visa interview. It's about a dozen questions. You put in all your information, what kind of visa you're going for, different qualifications. It'll give you an answer, kind of red, green, or yellow, whether they think that the visa officer is going to approve you or reject you. And that can really help you to see where you're standing right now. And if you could use more help, guidance, or even doing a mock interview with an Argo visa coaching officer. So be sure to, take advantage, get help. Don't be unsure, because unsure typically leads to rejection. So, Lissa, I've learned so much. Thank you for all of your help and helping us understand the DV lottery and the unique visa interview that comes with it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and friends, Lisa and I, we've made another video on the J1 visa, very different from the DV lottery, but another popular visa, more for short-term visits for study or work in America. So check that one out, or maybe you have a friend who's considering that. We'll get the links for the J1 visa video as well. We're trying to cover all these different categories to help you guys in your journey. If you want to keep learning, follow us on social media online like Instagram, LinkedIn, a lot of great resources. Our e-newsletter, our Chai and Coaching Chai Break newsletter, also lots of great resources, especially when we're going to go live with a former visa officer from Argo Visa to do live Q&A. Great time to get those questions answered. We love having you all be part of the community. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.